What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video we are talking about spring bass fishing and the #1 color you should be throwing right now. Lately we've been talking a lot about early spring bass fishing. You know, the transition, the migration that those fish start to think about making, or maybe they already started. But let's talk about actual fishing for a minute. You know, if you have been living under a rock the last few years, you might not have seen just the explosion in the red bait game. There are so many products on the market now that feature some kind of red and black, red and orange color scheme, color pattern on these baits. Even soft plastics. Why is that? I would love to tell you that I know 100% why, but I don't. What I do know is the reason that all these manufacturers are making a version of a red crawdad pattern is because it works. Springtime, this is my #1 color. Yes, throughout the year, I'm throwing shad patterns, I'm throwing baitfish colors, bluegill patterns, threadfin shad, but in the springtime, there is something to be said about throwing a version of red. Now, I'm not gonna even pretend, like I said, to tell you why. I do have my thoughts, and I'll cover those in a second, but I actually made a list. I made a list on my phone, just looking at Tackle Warehouse, scrolling through the baits that I use and the colors that I use. Listen to this. This is just in the last few years. Blood craw, Delta craw, Rayburn red, fire craw with orange blade, Heights hot craw, spring craw, cold blooded, rooster, mud bug punch, aurora craw, mad craw, electric red craw, phantom craw, TO craw, red bug, crawfish, escape craw. That's hard baits. Soft baits, Bloody Mary, flamethrower, green pumpkin flamethrower, fire craw, Senkos, and even Ned baits, right? Martin's Madness, red crawler, oxblood, super craw, and lava crusher. Those are just to name a few. Those are the ones that I scrolled through real quick on Tackle Warehouse and knew the colors that I throw in these different types of baits. You can see that there is a reason that all these companies are coming out with their versions of craw patterns. Now, gonna be totally honest, this video started with me burying this hook right here in the palm of my hand. So wasn't a good start to this video, but did the little braid trick, shot a little video on that, so maybe you'll see that on the channel here in the near future. But cool little video of just taking that big treble out of the palm of my hand. But as you can see, there are just so many variations of red. Now, like I said earlier, I'm not gonna even pretend to tell you that I know. What I think about, what really, when I kind of dive into this and try and process, you know, why should I be throwing a bright red and orange bait versus a natural ghosty kind of clear looking red bait? Obviously there's different things that come into play: weather, overcast, sunny, water clarity, water temperature, basically visibility for these fish. But in my mind, I'm thinking crawdads, right? I think that's what everybody thinks, right? You're trying to mimic a color or a variation of a color as a crawdad progresses through its molting deal. I don't know if that's true. What I can tell you is I've caught a lot of bass in the springtime on these baits, on these colors, but more importantly, start looking at the fish you're catching. You'll notice that some of them have real bright red lips. Those are crawdad eaters. You know, as we're talking about springtime, we're talking about pre-spawn, and as these fish are moving up, they're transitioning, they're going through that migration to their spawning bays, their spawning areas, they need to feed up. So in my mind, I'm thinking, all right, they need protein. These big bass, they're crawdad killers, right? They're crawdad eaters, and that's why the red works. But heck, I've caught them on chartreuse and blue, chartreuse and black. I've caught them on white, you know, different colors in the different water clarities. So then I'm thinking, maybe it's just a visibility thing. Maybe some days they need that real bright orange and red. Maybe it's muddy, right? Maybe you got an early spring storm, all those creeks are running. Now you have that fresh water coming into the lake. You have those fish going to that moving water, but it's murky, it's dingy, it's muddy, it's cold, and maybe they just need that visibility. I don't know, but what I can tell you from my years of fishing in the springtime, I always have some kind of red bait tied on all the way through into the summertime. That pre-spawn, that spawn, as these fish are transitioning, going through their spawning process, they're going to their spawning bays, they're coming back, they're moving around. Red, hands down, is my confidence bait. Now later on in summer and fall, then I'm going to transition back into those shad and bluegill, bait fish colors. But why, I wish you guys could see this, why is there so many different variations of red baits? Again, I read you that list: blood craw, phantom craw, ghost craw, electric craw, cold-blooded, I mean, you name it, right? Fire craw. There are so many different colors, but really, they're all fairly similar. Now here, let me show you, and then I'll kind of go through these baits. So you got some kind of ghost craw, blood craw, whatever you want to call it. This is the River Sea Tactical DD crank. That's called blood craw, okay? It's a see-through red. Okay, so there's a version of some kind of see-through red. Here's another color. This is by Spro. That's a little rock crawler. You guys can see, maybe you can't get this to focus on there. There you go. See that? Ghosty. Same color in the biggie. Some kind of, focus. Come on, camera. See that? Ghost craw. Then you have more of your solid colors, right? Spring craw. A little bit of red, a little bit of black, a little bit of orange. You'll see this in a lot of different baits. The Magic Man, that's by 13, right? Red and black and orange. Even jigs and soft plastics. This is a color I designed for Dirty Jigs many years ago. It's called NorCal Craw. You can see, kind of goes hand in hand with that red, that fire craw, right? You have your real natural reds, a little bit of orange in there. Depending on the day, depending on the water clarity, I might actually take and pull out that bright orange. I don't need that. Maybe I want that more natural color. But what you can see here, as I hold up these different baits, little Z crank by Megabass, okay? They are fairly similar. So I'm not telling you to go out and buy every red crankbait on the market. I'm just telling you that in the springtime, they work. And I like to have basically 2 versions, maybe 3 versions of a color of the red. So I'm gonna go with some kind of ghosty red, okay? Some kind of see-through. That's for your clear water. Visibility totally determines the colors that I go to. Now let's change up the situation. So I just caught some fish down there in 15 to 20, 25 feet of water on the ghost craw color, some kind of iridescent red. Water clarity is good. Fish will still eat it. They're keying in on those crawdads, but heck, now I'm up there in that muddy water. Now I need some kind of bright orangey color, right? That's that, I'm gonna cover all this stuff here shortly, but that's that new, so Missile Baits partnered with Hog Farmer, and they're pouring some really cool additional colors to that spunk shad color line. This is called Lava Craw. So you could see that paired up right there on the jackhammer. That's that orange bladed fire craw. You can just see that's just a match made perfectly, right? But as I'm holding up all these baits, you'll see there's different variations of this red. So I'm going with some kind of ghosty red. That's for my clearer water. Now as my water gets dingier and muddy, that's when I'm going something with a little bit more orange, a little bit more flash to it. Again, I think these fish are up there. They need that protein. They're up there rooting around. You know, as this water temps jump up from like your mid 40s to your mid 50s, those crayfish, crawdads, whatever you want to call them, start getting active. They're coming out of the mud, and those fish are devouring them. They're eating those crawdads. So red. Hopefully you guys understand the importance of this. You know, even spinnerbaits, right? Spinnerbaits with red blades, baits with the bright orange blades. They've all fairly become popular fairly in the last few years. It's kind of this red fire craw, lava craw, spring craw kind of explosion in baits. I remember the fire craw jackhammers, right? When those first came out, that's that little Zaco on the back. But that fire craw jackhammer, when it first came out and you couldn't get them, I saw them going for $40, $50, $60 a piece online, just because there was that much confidence in this color scheme, this colorway, and it kind of came out of nowhere. But really, Matt and I have been throwing red for a long time. You know, it's why we developed some of the colors we did on our custom stuff that we designed. But if you are fishing this time of the year through the spawn, you guys need to implement some kind of red in your fishing. Now, I don't care if it's a blade bait or a Ned rig, right? These fish are feeding up. Hopefully this is, can't tell if the camera's focusing, but these fish are feeding up, and for me, through the years, it just seems like they really key in on those red patterns, the red colorways, the different variations, and I get big bites. It seems like in the spring, the biggest bites that I catch or I get, or the biggest bites that I hear about, usually come on red. Heck, I heard of a big one out here caught last year in less than a few feet of water. It was a red trap, and it was a 13-pounder, right? Big ones eat red. Now, let's talk about baits real quick, because I have about 20 of them laid out here, but I'm not going to hold them all up to the camera. Jackhammers, chatterbaits. I don't care what kind of bladed jig you're throwing. Make sure you have some kind of red-ish pattern. Now, you can see here, I have two different jackhammers. I have the fire craw. I think this one's called Heights Hot Craw. Maybe that's Spring Craw. But I toned it down with a green pumpkin spunk shad, right? They don't all have to be super bright and obnoxious, right? Based on water clarity. Now, it all depends on your fishery too. I'll kind of go into this real quick. If you're on a fishery, say you're on a highland reservoir where you typically have 10 to 15 foot of visibility, and you get those rainstorms come in, and now you have 4 to 6 foot of visibility. That's a pretty big difference. That's where you're going to want to go with a little bit more obnoxious, bright color in your bait. Versus, say you're on a fishery where you typically have, visibility 3 to 4 feet. Now you're in that 2 to 3 feet. It's not really that much different. That's where you can get away with more of the toned down reds, right? You know, that Highland Reservoir, if you're fishing and you still have that 10 or 12, 15 foot of visibility, but you still want to throw red, again, we're talking about the ghosty reds, the kind of iridescent see-through reds, the more natural reds, or some red with some other colors in it. Green pumpkin. How about a jig right here? This is paired up with a Bloody Mary beaver, okay? All sorts of different ways. Like I said, if I'm fishing this and I feel like it's just too orange, too bright, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna pull these orange, I don't even know what you want to call this color, orange. Just like, I just think of like a construction cone, just like your, or like a hunter, like your blaze orange color, right? It's too much. I go through and I remove all that out of the skirt, and then I have something really, fix this for you guys. Then I have something really, really natural. Again, those crawdads, they're getting active, they're coming out of their holes, and those fish need to feed up, but it's all based on water clarity. So your fishery depends on, you know, what your fishery, the visibility typically is, and what it is after the storms, right? Did it really get muddied up, or is it still fairly clear? But you need to implement some kind of red. You guys know how much we love throwing lipless crankbaits, the LV500, the TN70, the Magic Man. Then you start getting into your little cranks. Again, this time of the year, I just did a video about where these fish are going. It's all about me. It's all about, for me, reaction baits, covering water, finding where those fish are. But I mean, we talked about it. Look at this little guy. Look at this little jig. Lava craw trailer. Again, little Ned bait. Fire craw. Now they're making fire craw Senkos. There's just so many different baits or variations of the reds on the market. Don't go out and buy every one of them, but get a different variation. Get a clear, get a more natural, and then also get something that has just kind of that obnoxious, bright, bold red and orange or red and black, and you guys are gonna have a ton of success. If you guys have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. I'll try to get those as soon as possible. But guys, red is the best bait, the best color you should be throwing right now. Again, as that water clears up, you can go away from it and go with your more natural colors. But this time of the year, through that spawn, a variation of a red squarebill, a red chatterbait, a red crankbait, a spinnerbait, a jig, a finesse worm, you know, robo worm. I mean, there's so many different worms on the market now. I'm even drop shotting kind of like Martin's Madness, right? That's a great color. The fish just seem to really like this color, a variation of these colors this time of the year. So even in my soft plastics, when I'm flipping or pitching or throwing a drop shot, a bigger drop shot, I'm throwing some kind of variation or some kind of bait color with red in it. Again, don't know if it's a crawdad thing. I don't know if it's a visibility thing. All I know is it works. Like I said, guys, if you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comments section. I appreciate you for watching. If you learned something from this video, give us a thumbs up. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear what your favorite color is through this pre-spawn kind of transition, and if you've had the same success, you know, same success on the fire craws and the lava craws and the cold-bloodeds, the spring craws, the Rayburn reds, all those colors. I'm curious if you guys have caught your big ones this time of the year on some kind of red. As always, thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we will see you guys on the next video.